Hi, Jose. Thank you so much for with me today. I did want to talk about some of the provisions that were stated in the contract, which were all good. I just had some alterations I wanted to go over with you. Is that okay?
Sure. Thank you, Fernando. I'm happy to be on in this meeting, this call. I appreciate you looking at some of the provisions or red lines that I made in the contract, and I'm sure that we can come to an agreement. Um, on some of the underlying issues, and I'm willing to listen to hear what you have to say. Um, I think we have, for me, I have 5 points I want to go over, and I'll listen to what you have to say, and then I'll give you a rebuttal after that.
Perfect. Actually, if it's okay, if you can start with your first point.
Okay. So the first thing I was looking at it from the contract that you sent to me for Talk of the Town, as I sent in my notes, that Sandra's in demand and she's one of the top influencers. Uh, I don't want to openly or I'm so bad at saying this word through perpetuity give her likeness and rights out. So I'm looking more so for the first one to be a limited term, and I want to make sure that everything is related to the production. So that was in the first paragraph. And if do you want me to read it out to you?
Oh no, I totally understand. I was going to mention, okay, perpetuity is totally understandable. We are a budding or growing podcast, so keeping all of her name, image, likeness, and even content on our podcast forever wouldn't make sense because we do want her to come back eventually if the first time goes well. So I do want to add to that. With this being a situation where it's a limited scope. I would say I want to put a date on this, so it would be May 1st in the agreement. If Sandra is okay with starting May 1st or at least signing on May 1st, which will give her a few weeks out to be featured on Talk of the Town podcast and for all of her content to be accessible for marketing purposes only. And I'm asking for a maximum of 12 months for marketing, whether it be Talk of the Town's podcast or even for your client. It'll give her leverage to say, hey, I was on a growing podcast, and for us to say, hey, this influencer that we're working with was, one of our first features.
Okay. I mean, for me, everything that you just said sounds agreeable, and the limited term, beginning May 1st and 12 months. I can speak on behalf of Sandra and say that that will work for us.
Okay, perfect. There was something else you mentioned earlier in one of your points that I want to get into. When you mentioned written permission, or when Sandra mentioned that she wanted written permission, I totally agree with that, and I prefer it on our end because we do want to have a great relationship with her. But we also ask that the written permission from your client is sent to our client for record keeping purposes only.
Okay, so yeah, I can definitely make sure that whenever we give written permission, that we would, deliver it based on the agreed upon ways of deliverables, and from what I'm looking at, via email and also mailed to the producer's office. Uh, and just to clarify, with the written permission, that is for any type of I'm sorry, what's the word that I'm need to use for any type of publicity, or just to clarify each time that we're trying to use her likeness. So advertising, publicity, and marketing and promotions, correct?
You are correct. That's mainly what it's for.
Great. So yeah, the written approval on a case by case basis, and that's only because you know, with her being a top influencer, she likes to make sure that whoever that she's associating with, whatever corporation, whatever or whoever's marketing her, that it is in alignment to what her brand is. So
Oh
I
yeah.
appreciate you considering that.
Yes, indeed. Even to piggyback off of what you're saying, there is a portion of confidentiality on the agreement that is mentioned, and I'm glad that's brought up because we agree with that provision. But we also added a moral clause to respect any type of promotion we do for your client, and also to continue to grow with her. To have a continuous relationship. So I want to mention for the confidentiality we did add a moral clause because we want to make sure that she's being represented in the best possible light when it comes
Okay.
to speaking with us.
Quick question about the moral clause. Uh, is you know, let's just talk about some recent things in media. For example, Don Lemon mentioning on air about a certain presidential candidate's age. When it comes to the moral clause that you guys have in the agreement, can you expand upon what's the expectations of my client? To make sure that she meets those moral clause.
I would put it this way. So we'll ask her questions that are gonna be positive, nothing like a scandalous question, meaning like, hey, we heard you were out with this celebrity, or you got drunk, or you did this, or you did that. We're gonna ask the right questions because we want her audience to see the positivity in her and the likeness. So when the moral clause is, well, with the moral clause that's in here, is just to say that anything that's out in the press that's already negative, we are not adding to it.
Ah, got it. Great. That sounds like something that I can sign off on her behalf as well.
Perfect.
Ooh, so I think that brings us to our fourth point. And or is it our fifth point? Let's see here. Just to make sure that if we have that the state of California will be um, the entity for governing laws. If should we have any disagreements.
Oh yes, no, I totally agree with that. There's
Okay.
also a portion of the provision where you mentioned your client needs 3 days to think things over. I extended it to 7 days because one day she can be sick, or there may be an emergency where she wouldn't be able to look over things. So I just want to extend that an extra 4 days to give her more time, just in case she runs out of time to communicate if we needed permission for anything.
Okay. That's very generous of you. Uh,
Oh,
and with that, I can agree as well. I just want to make sure that she had the opportunity to take a look at the content prior to it being released. Uh, and I thought that she could get it done in 3 days to not hold your production up, or not to kind of keep you hostage. But I'm glad that you all are able to accommodate 7 days.
oh yes.
So, do you have any other points that you wanted to go over?
The last point, which is fairly simple, any content that we want to utilize will be communicated with you directly via email, but we are going to ask to have Sandra's email where we can CC her on the emails, but also send out separate letters mailed to both of you for permission to use the content that was produced on our podcast. We just want to make sure that we're still, connecting with both of you and you're seeing good faith in the relationship.
Oh, great. I appreciate that, and I think Sandra would appreciate that as well. We just want to make sure having access to her confidential information, as mentioned in the contract, particularly her address, that all this information is kept confidential and only with the production, not to be released to the public.
Yes, we will definitely make sure it's confidential.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't have much else to add. We're looking forward to working with her soon.
Okay, great. So I will once we get off of this call, I'll go ahead and print the contract out with the provisions, and I'll have Sandra sign it. Once she signs it, I'll go ahead and scan it and email it to you, and send it out next day mail.
This works. Well, I do really appreciate your time, Jose. You have a good evening, and thanks for meeting with me today.
Great. You as well, Fernando.
Thank you.